Hello coaches and welcome to this edition of Give and Go Live. My name's David Newbury and I'd like to welcome you to this presentation looking at short and long passing patterns, and this is a technical activity that is suitable for young players and certainly older and more proficient players, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how you can make this appropriate for everyone. The basic setup is 5 players, 4 on the outside and one player on the inside. I've numbered those players 1, 2, 4, and 5 on the outside and number 3 on the inside. And the simple pattern to begin with is a pass down the short side, approximately 15 to 20 yards, depending on the age, of course, and then a pass inside into the middleman. The middleman on receipt of the ball then passes to the other end. The approximate distance from one corner to the other corner on the long side is around about 25 to 30 yards. And again, we can make that area larger if we would like to encourage longer passes, maybe chipped or driven passes. But that's the basic setup in sequence number 1. As we progress to sequence number 2, you'll see that we've added an extra player on the inside, number 1 and number 6. Now, in this situation, we can do one of two things. One is that we can add 2 balls, as you see here. So we have a sequence starting at this end and a sequence starting at the other end, and we play into the middleman, and so the ball should be moving constantly, 2 balls moving constantly and switching from one end to the other. The one thing to note here is that when number 6 turns and passes to the other end, let's say to number 4, number 6 then moves away from the direction of the pass and exchanges positions with either number 2 or number 3. And that will all depend on which person the number 6 chooses to run towards. If, for example, the number 6 runs towards number 3 will then run into the middle and take up a position to receive the next pass. So number 6 passes to number 4. At the same time as the number 4 passes to 5, number 6 runs towards number 3. Number 3 then runs in. Number 5 receives the ball from number 4 and then passes into number 1. And we'll see this in a minute using some great animation from Global Coach and also a video from the convention. And then in the third sequence, we've made the area much larger. So we now maybe have a 40 to 50 yard area here for proficient players, older players, and then we also have a short side that has approximately 20 yards to 25 yards. So the area is larger and the ability for the players to play the ball over greater distances is now tested. And as you will see here now, we've layered 2 teams in, a yellow team and a red team. Just as before, we have 2 players in the middle for each team, the number 5 and number 6. And we start the ball from opposite ends so that the ball is started for the yellow team at one end and the red team at the other end. The other nuance here is that instead of playing down the short side, the players play along the long side before passing the ball into the middle. A couple of things to note for the players in the middle. Firstly, that we could use this to teach functional training for the midfield players. This could be a defensive midfield player, number 6, and this one maybe become the number 8. So we're working on combinations between the 2, and that might be a rule that before we pass the ball to the end, we must make a combination between number 6 and number 8. We may also want to teach the number 6 and number 8 to move into high positions and to deep positions. So there's never a square pass, which we try to avoid. We want them to play on an angle 45 degrees backwards or 45 degrees forward, and that makes it easier for us to retain possession. The other thing to note here is distances between players. The players in the middle should certainly maintain distances. I like to keep them about 15 yards apart, but we also need to remember that when the number 6 moves this way, they're also constricting the space for the player in the corner, and if the number 5 move too high up here, then they make the space for the number 4 limited as well. So there's lots of real detailed tactical and technical information here we can use for advanced players. Another thing to consider is when the ball goes in, which foot does the number 5 receive with? Does the 5 receive with the left foot, meaning the ball is going to be received on this side of the player, or does the player have the time to allow the ball to run across the body, to open the body and receive on the right foot? And if we do that, then has a better opportunity to play forward in 1 touch or 2 touch. And so there's lots of things to consider here, and much of that depends, of course, on the game scenario, whether there's pressure coming from this side or that side, or no pressure at all. So we're now going to look at a couple of videos. The first one is from Global Coach. It's an animation of the very first sequence we looked at, and then we're going to transition automatically into video from the convention. And when we've done that, I will bring it back and we will just do a brief debrief before we leave this session. So let's have a look at the Global Coach video first. And now we will have a look at the video from the 2018 convention.
From. And there's 4 things we're going to be looking at. Firstly, the preparation before they receive the ball. Secondly, the receipt of the ball itself. Thirdly, the passing technique. And then fourthly, what they do once they've passed the ball. So those are the 4 components. And this is part of... And keep going. Keep the ball moving. And girls, what I want you to try and do as we play is I'd like you to try and play with a 2-touch rhythm if you can, meaning you control the ball on your first touch and then pass on your second touch. So let's see if we can do that if we can. Can we go 2-touch rhythm? Receive. Good girl. Well done. Lovely. Can you open up with your first touch? And pass and move. And move. Good girl, Mariah. Did you look at the ball, Mariah? Brooke, play first touch. Let's go. And we can play there as well. Good girl. Good. Combine. And move. Remember, don't just run at them. Don't turn your back. Play in. And freeze. So, maybe with some... Rachel, just come here, Rachel. I want you to drop a little bit deeper and open up your body. So when you play, you can play first touch there, or you can play across to your 8. Okay, play in. You go on. Play across. Good. And play. Good, and move. And the opposite way, girls, the opposite way. The opposite way, you've just run towards the players. Opposite way. Good girl, opposite way. You can adjust yourselves. I'll let you work this out. How many players have you got at...
So there we have it, a video that showed the progression from the very simple 5-player setup to the 2 groups of 12 players in total layered on top of each other. And that was a group of 10, 11-year-old girls that had been doing that activity for the first time on a reasonably lively surface indoors. So certainly lots to work on with them, but I think they did reasonably well considering the conditions and obviously an audience watching them. So just to recap, this is an activity that is used for technical training, for passing and receiving. It can be very simple in its setup, but we can add more challenge and more conditions and things such as combinations for players in the middle. And eventually, of course, we could add in there defenders that are looking to win the ball from either or both teams. So a real great activity. Love this one. The players enjoy it a lot, and you can make great improvements in their technical ability and understanding of movement if you work on this a few times in your training session. So hopefully, coaches, this is something that you will be able to work on with your groups, and I look forward to having you join us on the next edition of Give and Go Live.